I did not end up working out yesterday on Tuesday just because I still wasn't feeling 100% after kind of recovering from being sick and just kind of the workout before. So I decided to just give myself a day's rest. I think it paid off. The squats moved fairly well. It was only 270 pounds, so it's a fairly movable weight for me at this point. This is the third time in this programming that I've done this weight, and I'm impressively to myself, and I guess to my own credit, it's just moving along. There's really not a whole lot of fight left to it anymore, and it just feels nice to have tangible results of myself getting stronger week in and week out. What I'm doing is working, and I feel better seeing stuff like this every single time. And on top of that, I again, dressing my stance and making sure that I was standing where I need to be to get the strongest results possible for myself. I was able to really just kind of push through these. And while I did not feel the greatest amount of work on my legs, I did feel a good amount of work on my core. So I'm definitely working the stabilizers to be able to really push these weights more and more. And I definitely felt work in my glutes and again in the core. So things are moving, and it's just kind of feeling better day in and day out. I'm still kind of looking a little hesitantly towards later on in this month, this training sequence where I'll be hitting 310 pounds potentially for, 5 sets of 5, which, I've done for singles pretty routinely, but going that heavy in reps is just seems intimidating. But it's one of those things to where if I let it be overwhelmingly intimidating to myself, I might psych myself out and not be able to do it. But I definitely think that I have a capability to do it as long as I just keep believing that I do. And sometimes that's kind of what you have to do, is just kind of almost trick yourself in a way into thinking that, this is casual. This is something that I can easily do, even if it seems intimidating. Even if you're nervous about it, the having that nervousness and that apprehension is kind of how you conquer it. You go into it thinking, I need to be able to do this, and there's no better way than, there's no better feeling really than being nervous about it initially, than doing it and just crushing it, realistically. So I'm hoping that as I get closer and closer, I'm able to psych myself up and think that, this is something that I can just accomplish without having to give much thought to it. So definitely looking forward to that going forward. Just kind of rolling along. Overall, I'm very happy with how these are going. My back is nice and flat. I'm not feeling any sort of strain in my lower back from doing these. And I'm just feeling, again, just feeling stronger. So I definitely think that worst comes to worst, I can just park at this weight for a while and just kind of sit at it. Just be able to kind of casually do 270 if I need to take a break from kind of heavier squatting. Going into the Romanian deadlifts, these were pretty okay today. I decided to keep the weight at 255 for this session. I know I was kind of musing on that last time, and I kind of decided it was probably a good idea. Just because going up to 270 didn't seem like it was really that productive whenever I was doing it the last month's training block. I just think that I am going to get more out of less, being less ambitious on this one, just because I think there's a limitation to what I will get like good utilization from, and 255 seems like plenty for now. And it worked. It felt good. My glutes felt plenty plenty of activation. My hamstrings got a good stretch out of them. And just got to keep this up. I think this is going to be a staple at least for maybe another month or so. So it'll be a fun endeavor, just kind of pushing this just a little bit more and more. Not sure when I'm going to test my max deadlift again, but it will definitely be in the cards in the coming weeks, just because I just kind of curious where this will take it. I think that I could probably pull 400 if I wanted to, almost on really any given day now. And I think that is a remarkable improvement from where I was previously to where that would have been something that I would have to work up to for a couple days to kind of prime myself to get ready for pulling that heavy weight. Kind of backing off on the heavier reps and hitting a couple heavy singles in certain sessions just to kind of get my body used to the idea of it. And now I feel like that if I just put it on the bar, I can just pull it. So that kind of speaks well to me. I don't know how realistic that is, but I'm hoping it is. You know, it'd be nice to kind of feel consistent improvement in that in the same way that I do my squats. And I think it's definitely there. I'm definitely having to take more time to be a bit more technical with it than with my squatting in general. But I think that also just kind of owes to it being a bit more intensive movement on the body than squatting. Deadlifting isn't necessarily like a natural kind of movement, so to speak. It's not, you're not deadlifting to stand up. I think, whereas squatting, it's just part of our normal movement patterns. I decided to repeat the 2 exercises I did last week for my upper body. So dumbbell flies to a close press and doing the underhand cable flies. These, I kept it 22 and a half for 3 sets and then upped my weight to 25 for the last set. First 3 sets moved remarkably better than last week, and I think that's just having to get that familiarity with the CNS to where once the body goes, oh, yeah, we're doing this, it's more prepared to actually do it instead of just kind of flubbing its way through it. And it just kind of gets easier every time. So I think it kind of gives, sometimes when you take time off an exercise to try a new one, it gives the illusion that you might be a little bit weaker than you are, but realistically your body just doesn't work used to the pathways to do it. At least in this instance too, just kind of as I felt it. I know I mentioned last week that it felt like my right arm was a little bit weaker, or like, not as in tune with everything as my left, and I think that was definitely true. But I also think it just kind of goes back into I'm left-handed. I'm very dominant in terms of usage of my left hand, and so it's going to be used to be able to just immediately adapt to any sort of need for dexterity or control, whereas my right arm's going to take a little bit more time to be attuned to that, just because it's not something that I'm going to be going out of my way to focusing on, as much, at least, like in a subconscious fashion. And today it felt just a lot better, a lot more natural. So definitely some improvement there. I think next week, so typically how I do hypertrophy progression with some of these exercises is that in terms of going up weights, especially with dumbbells, you want to be really careful, just because with a barbell, you can add 5% to, almost ad nauseum, just because it's in terms of realistic, or 5 pounds, 10 pounds ad nauseum, and because it's realistically not a huge portion of the weight that you're actually pulling. When you're ever doing that with dumbbells, that adds up to a lot. It's a lot of weight. So in terms of percentage gained, if I were to add 5 pounds at 20 pounds or 22 and a half pounds, that's, almost well over 25 or, almost 25% of the weight right there. And that's a hell of a jump. So I'm moving up 2.5 pounds at a time, maybe even less than that, but it's it's a process, and it's definitely working. So one thing too, like with my flies, I was going a little wide in terms of my arm stand positioning. So I kind of kept the elbows bent a little bit more, and it helped open up the chest a bit as I was going through it. Sorry about that little tangent right there, but back to what I was saying, like with the weight increases, you have to be really kind of careful with being more gradual with them. So how I typically plan it is that instead of going up every single session, 22 and a half pounds last week, 25 this week, 27 and a half next week, along those lines. That can be very taxing, especially on a smaller muscle group the anterior delts and the lower pecs, to where it's just a lot to strain to put on it to hit those with ever increasing weights. Whereas, if you just kind of add a little bit every couple sessions, to where first one I did, I just kind of figured out what my max was. So 22 and a half, did 3 sets of that this time. And then I kind of gauged how I felt with those and did 25 for the last. And it was doable. So the next session, I'm going to be aiming to do 22 and a half for 2 sets, see how I'm feeling, do 25 for the third set, and then see how it feels overall when I do my 4th set, if it's going to be a struggle, if it's going to be something that's relatively attainable. And if that's the case, maybe do that one more time, or add on another set just in general. So instead of doing 2 sets, do 3 or maybe even 4, and just work on increasing that weight to where you are doing a progressive overload, to be able to, 1, develop strength, but 2, kind of work on hypertrophy a little, but kind of at the same time, just kind of try to do both at the same time. So do a little bit of power building. I take that approach a lot with doing these strength works out. Similar to last week with the underhand chest flies, to where I was doing trying to just find my max, and it was 25 pounds. So I did 25 pounds today for all 4 sets, and I debated adding more weight on the last set, but I cautioned against that, just because I wanted to see how one full set or one full workout rather at 25 pounds felt just overall, compared to building up and then trying to just add a little bit right at the end. It's just going to take time. With how this felt, next time I do these, potentially on Saturday, unless I decide to do a couple different chest exercises, I will probably increase the weight to 27 and a half pounds or maybe 30 pounds. But again, I just got to kind of think of how easily it moved. And then if I'm going to do it for maybe 1 set or 2 sets right at the end, and just, again, take caution to not build too quickly, because you don't want to do these with bad form, because that can kind of inhibit proper muscle development, just because you aren't using them as effectively as you could, and not in the ways that they should. So just taking care to make sure it's being done properly with good weight increases. So just kind of taking it, day by day, set by set, and just kind of approaching these. I think with my next workout, which I am going to be doing on Friday, I'm not sure if I'm going to do overhead press again or not. I'm still kind of thinking that over, whether that would be worth it to do. Part of me is leaning towards yes, just because of how the 107.5 felt. And I think that I can, I'll probably be able to do 112 and a half. Just because that's not too far off of my consistent overhead press weight at 115. And I don't know. I'm just going to play with it and kind of see what happens. I'm just kind of here looking for something a little bit different to kind of change things up and get a little bit of improvement out of. So we'll see how that goes.